going to start off with an excerpt from an article by an investigative journalist called T.D. Ullman. The name of the article was Serbia's Blood War. It's about the war in Yugoslavia and the atrocities that followed. And why did I pick this piece was because the war in Yugoslavia is where we get the term ethnic cleansing from. It was once that war happened that we realized that we needed a term for what had happened, and that emerged with ethnic cleansing. And it seemed to me that the reason I picked this piece, because it just seemed to me that we as a race just don't seem to learn from our mistakes or from the lessons of history. We're eating the grapes of the dead, and the grapes are delicious. Juicy, blue-black, sweet and tart. They hang in fulsome, ripe clusters in the arbor just behind the house where the Serbs killed the Muslim man and his wife. The people who built this house and lived in it are gone forever. But in these small mementos, you can see the modest lives of decent hard work that came to an end 5 nights ago. This town is called Prijedor. It's in northern Bosnia, a region paradigmatic of what the world has come to call ethnic cleansing. So the Serbs came in the night. The explosion was at 1 a.m. They put dynamite in the sanctuary of the mosque. When the minaret collapsed, the explosion blew out the black wall of my house. The Serbs come every night, sir. They take 2 or 3 people. I'm going to be next. I'm going to be killed soon. Is there some way you could help my children get to Stuttgart? I've worked in a bakery there for 8 years. My friends there, they could raise them. After inspecting the debris of the mosque, we drive over to see the Roman Catholic church the Serbs blew up. An elderly woman, a Croat Catholic lay worker, wearing a Virgin Mary medal, searches the rubble for relics. They blew up the church 5 minutes after they blew up the mosque. The fire station is right over there, but the Serb firemen would not help. Until it decided to commit suicide, Yugoslavia was on its way to joining the club of affluent European nations. Yugoslavia had tourism, heavy industry. It was a food surplus nation. The totems of an emerging consumer society were everywhere. Before the killings started, practically everyone, it seemed, was just finishing a new house or had just bought a new car. But as the state collapsed and Slovenia, then Croatia, and finally Bosnia seceded from the Yugoslav Federation, the Serbs exploded in a frenzy of killing and destruction. Ever since, the world has looked on, horrified, but done nothing to stop the aggression, let alone reverse it. On the TV screen, all they talk about is peace. Yet afterward, the pictures always switch back to Sarajevo. The snipers, the artillery, the old people freezing to death, the children with no names because their relatives are all dead and they are too young to speak. The outside world, of course, had been too preoccupied with other matters to pay much attention to what had happened. Milosevic had triumphed. Death and suffering had been visited on countless thousands of innocents with what turned out to be impunity. A UN peace worker tells me, on every Bosnian's tombstone it should be inscribed, I died because Helmut Kohl and Francois Mitterrand and John Major were too afraid the Maastricht Treaty wouldn't pass. And on the children's graves they should write, it was also an election year in the United States of America. At Banja Luka's Bosna Hotel, which looks like the Ramada Inn, I sup with the devil, and it occurs to me that I have neglected to bring a long spoon. Actually, the police chief of Prijedor, seated on my right, is amiable though didactic. Over cocktails, he delivers a long discourse on his specialty, ethnic warfare. He says, you Americans, you do not understand ethnic warfare because you fight only clean wars, like Kuwait and Vietnam. In ethnic warfare, the enemy doesn't wear a uniform or carry a gun. Everyone is the enemy. World War I began here, World War III will begin here too. I ask, that certainly was a professional job done on the mosque in the church. Who did it? Nah, not professional enough, huh? Vandals did it, he says. That's funny. The mosque was blown up at 1 a.m. The church was blown up 5 minutes later. But there's a curfew in Prijedor. Only forces under your command are allowed out that late. Ah, we are investigating, huh? A Croat sniper was firing from the steeple of the church. You don't mean that night, at 1:05 in the morning? No, before. And the mosque? That was an enemy position too? Ah, yes, you are right. The mosque was being used by enemies of the Serbs. And all the destroyed houses that we saw, they all had bunkers, huh? So the fact the Muslim houses had basements meant that they had to be dynamited. Yes, now you are beginning to understand, huh, sir? Sir, do you want your children to be killers or computer salesmen? My next piece is an extract from a play called A Peasant of El Salvador. It was directed by Quasar Thakur Padamsee. In the play, as in real life, Archbishop Monsignor Oscar Romero from El Salvador, the day after he gave this particular speech, was assassinated by the military in 1980, resulting in El Salvador erupting in a massive civil war for 12 years. This speech was broadcast on radios all across the country to get the military to stop the atrocities inflicted upon the peasants, and somehow the speech has resonance even today. The original was in Spanish. This is the English translation. I want to make a special call to the men of the army and concretely to the bases of the National Guard and police. Brothers, you come from the same people as we. You are killing your own brothers and sisters, the peasants. And when faced with an order to kill given by a man, you should rather obey the law of God. Thou shalt not kill. No soldier is obliged to obey an order contrary to God's law. An immoral law nobody has to obey. The church cannot keep quiet faced with such abomination. In the name of God, therefore, and in the name of the suffering people whose cries climb up to heaven louder every day, I urge you, I beg you, I order you, in the name of God, cessez la répression. Stop the repression. Thank you.